Do you know a story about a QA who enters a bar and orders -1 beers? That was the story. But here's another one. A project manager walks into a bar, and the bar is called Organizational Design. And the project manager is trying to order a beer, and he can't understand how to order a beer because it's super complex. And then he is disappointed, and he tries to exit the bar, but then he couldn't find the door because it's a very complex bar. And then he looks around and sees other managers, and they're all trapped there in the complexity of the bar. So we're going to talk about complexity, and well, I didn't plan that, but the first talk was about complexity. The last talk is about complexity. I guess there's something in the air about complexity. Yeah, I wasn't smart enough to stay at home and do this talk over Skype, so I had to take a very early flight this morning. So I'm still quite dizzy. Okay, so we're going to talk about complexity of product organizations and product development. Okay, do we have any project managers in the room? I'm not gonna make jokes on you anymore, just was enough. Okay, do you have people, so not everybody raise their hands. Who of you is actually involved in some kind of project? Yeah, I was expecting that. So, surprise, surprise, actually all of you are doing some kind of project management. Okay, so all of you are actually project managers. Do we have people in the room who call themselves organizational designers? I call myself sometimes, yeah, second one. Well, okay, is any one of you working for or in organization? Okay, congratulations, all of you are actually designing and changing that organization every day, even if you don't know that, or even if you don't want to do that. So we all are actually project managers of some sort, and we all are designers of our organizations. Okay, so this talk is for all of you then. So today in the morning, Dave has introduced us to his super cool model, sense-making model about complexity. And basically, I'm not going to cover that because actually it's a very complicated model to understand. So the way I understand it is a slightly more simplified vision of that. So he actually introduced different dimensions to complexity, if you remember, if you were here this morning. But here's another dimension of complexity. There is inherent, I think in English, complexity, right? We all know how to boil water, right? Apparently, physicists, right? They are trying really hard to understand and to mathematically explain how the bubbles are formed, right? It's a very non-trivial problem, and nobody actually can explain how it works. And I've Googled some material, and there's like a cool PhD student paper describing in many pages how this might work. So this is a page 121, okay? And like all pages look like that. I don't understand a thing, but what I understand is that, okay, it's a very complex process, how the bubbles are formed. Apparently, you don't need to have a PhD to be able to boil some spaghettis for you, right? Somehow we all know how to go around complexity. Usually the instructions how to cook spaghetti, they about of this size on the back side of the spaghetti box, right? So some things are naturally complex, but we know how to deal with that complexity. We know how to abstract from that complexity, right? Another example of a complex system, this is me speaking here in actually, how many, 4 years ago, right? So me, I'm also a complex system. Since that time, I believe 70% of my cells have changed. But I still believe I'm the same person, and if you call me Alexey, I will still respond. So for some of you, I'm still the same simplified version of me, of my system, although on a systematic level, on the cell level, I'm a completely different thing. I'm a very complex and complicated person. Going back to the topic of spaghetti, I think somehow today complexity and spaghetti are the topics in the air. I don't know why, right? There was some other workshop on spaghetti. We all heard about spaghetti code, right? I saw somebody coding over there, so I'm not sure how spaghetti that code was, but looked quite cooked. Yeah, so what's a spaghetti code? It's a very complex code, which is more complex than our capacity of understanding that code. But what we can understand in that code, that there are some places we should not touch. Okay, and once we understand how to jump over that pieces of code, we can deal with that complexity. Okay, so we are all good at managing and understanding complexity. So our companies, our organization are also very complex things. It's just yesterday I was doing a workshop for a company called Rovio in Helsinki. Do you know this company? You guys know Angry Birds, right? So that's the company behind Angry Birds. A very cool company, a very cool place. Actually, they've developed much more games than just one game, but everybody actually knows Angry Birds. They said they've developed over 50 games, and only one of them so far was such a big success. They're still trying to seed many games, and they're trying to repeat that success. But that's again an example of very complex world, right? It's really hard to find recipes. It's really hard to understand why something was successful and the other games are not so successful. Okay, so this is how our companies look like, right? Well organized, structured, big, complex. Well, apparently most of companies would look like this, I think, right? So if you can look at this picture, and if you can open up your senses, you might smell some smoke in the air, right? This is India, right? You can hear some noise, some cars are beeping, right? Some people are shouting, somebody's trying to put a cow away from the road, right? There's lots of bottlenecks, there's lots of movements, there's lots of deadlocks. People are trying to decide on which side of the road to drive. Yeah, so this is actually added complexity. Yeah, so this is there is inherent complexity, something which is there, and we cannot change it because of the laws of the nature. And this complexity we add on top of that. So I'm going to talk about this complexity, this added complexity. Okay, and I will try to simplify my talk as much as I can. So I will be explaining this with examples. Now I need some water. Okay, so. The classical answer how we deal with complexity, it might be demonstrated with this example. So it's a product development company. They are building a product. Okay. Usually a product in this architecture has multiple layers. I assume there are just 3 layers there. I know, front end, APIs, and a back end, right? And there are different people who are skilled in different areas. Just for simplicity, we assume that one person just knows a very good one area of the code, okay? And of course, this company is trying to do Agile, so there's a product manager called now product owner, and he has a backlog of the things he wants those guys to develop, okay? So as you can understand, as you know, there are multiple ways how you can structure teams in this company, right? You can structure them vertically, or you can structure them horizontally. Like that, yeah? Why would you want to structure those teams horizontally? Like a team of yellow guys, a team of blue guys, and a team of green guys. Well, it actually simplifies lots of things, right? If those guys are kept together in one room, those yellow guys, probably they can ensure consistency of the yellow code base, right? If we put them in different rooms, well, maybe they start inventing different frameworks in the same yellow code base, and they'll be out of consistency. Also, it's quite easy to understand who's working on what. It's easier to measure how productive they are. Yeah, so we're trying to simplify this world, and one of the decisions can be made at this company is to split form teams horizontally. Okay. Usually, when you simplify something on one side, usually becomes much more complex on the other side. Okay, so on the other side, there's this guy we call product owner, and currently he doesn't know how to deal with these teams anymore. Okay, because this feature, which is a user-facing centric feature, usually requires work to be done through multiple layers, right? So actually, there's none of these teams can take this work and implement it end to end. Yeah. So what happens is that we need to, in this situation, have some kind of extra cycle, extra meeting, or extra event where we will pre-plan this work, right? Do you guys have pre-planning events? Yeah, some people do like pre-planning, like pre-planning, then pre-planning, then planning, and then actually sprint planning, okay? So, yeah, it might take a while before you really detail the work well enough so the teams can actually take those tasks into sprints, right? So in this example, they have a pre-planning event where some guys are trying to identify which work needs to be done in which components, and then trying to map those tasks to each team, okay? And there are lots of tools out there like Jira, which helps you to manage that complexity with labels, tasks, subtasks, subtasks, etc., right? Okay, well, we also need probably some other people or extra people who can actually help to do this work, okay? Because the teams are busy building code, and those guys can actually have some free time working with PO and try to understand how to split that. I know some companies call them analysts, some companies call them team leads, tech leads. There are many names for these roles, right? But you probably know what kind of role I'm talking about if you think about your company, if you have something like that happening in your organization. Okay, so what we have done so far, we have introduced this extra layer to simplify our complexity, and now basically we have one meeting where analysts are talking to the product owner, and then the other meeting where the analysts are talking to the development teams and actually explain them how to do the work. So what's happening with the complexity of our organization so far? Yeah, a few more extra roles, a few more extra meetings, a little bit more documentation, but probably we can still manage that. You probably see where I'm going with that, right? With that story. Yes, no? So stay tuned, it's going to be more interesting. More faces appearing on the picture and more lines appearing in the picture. Okay, what usually happens in this situation is that, well, the priority of the business features usually don't have any correlation with how much work needs to be done in every component. It might happen then in this current release they are working on. It's a very heavy front-end features are there, right? So a lot of work needs to be done on front-end because we are trying, I don't know, to go to a German market, and Germans are very precise with how things should look like, right? So we're trying to improve our interfaces, and that's why lots of work is there for the yellow team. So what do we do now? Well, these guys can work overtime and can get some extra bonuses for that, but it's not sustainable, you know. Agile actually helps us to think of sustainability, so we think we need to do something with that load. Yeah, so we sometimes introduce these extra people to help us manage this load, manage resources. They sometimes switch people from team to team, or sometimes they just go and hire more people, right? So this is exactly what this guy did. He went to the market and get a few more people out there. He maybe went to a conference, sponsored the conference, get emails from people, and get some few people join his company. Well, whose of these three managers is the best one? Of course, the one who has more people under him, right? So now he's promoted. Well, because this guy manages just 3 poor guys, and this one has to manage a dozen. So he probably needs to have a higher salary. Well, the good thing actually is that more people can produce more code, right? So what's currently happening with our organization? More roles, more meetings, more documentation, more managers, more coordination, more people. And more people will need more roles, more meetings. So we're entering this interesting, vicious cycle. Okay. Cheers. Great water with some bubbles. Alrighty. So this is how our company currently looks like, okay? Actually, in the real world, it will be much more complicated. There will be much more layers, much more errors. So I'm trying to simplify this complexity, these dynamics for you. Well, this team, in some cases, might become so big that because of the cost optimization, we decide to outsource that work. So I'm from Ukraine, right? So we do lots of offshore outsourcing projects, and basically all of my career I spent as a developer, Scrum Master, basically working in offshore environment. So this is one way how to optimize the system. And if we go that way, we probably need to have somebody out there, like a site manager or site coordinator or whatever you call this role, to help those guys out there to stay in touch with us. But maybe this company is doing it the right way, and they are not going offshore. They're still trying to keep people in one building because people have to work together, and face-to-face collaboration is what we're all proud of. So what happens next, or might happen next, is that you see there's still lots of yellow tasks in the backlog. And these guys have enough work to do, these yellow guys, but the other guys, they actually are running out of work. Yeah? So there's no much APIs to be developed anymore. All API calls are done and ready and working, and backend work is also done. There's maybe a little tuning to the database is required. So what do these people do? Do you think these team leads can easily free up these people so that they join the yellow team, learn how to write JavaScript, any other front-end language, and be useful where the work is really needed? Well, most likely not, because if this guy gives all his 3 developers to the other team lead, he now got a bonus, okay? So that's why he will protect his team, and he will try to make up some work for them. We're all good at making up work, right? There's always some things to refactor. There's always lots of technical debt to be paid off. There's always work, right? You guys know that. And basically, well, these guys are keeping themselves busy, and busy people produce more code, okay? You still coding out there? No. Sometimes, yeah, you need to stop and think whether you need to write the line of code or not. Okay, so what actually happens when you develop something which you currently don't need? Yeah? Where do you keep that? So these guys are actually looking ahead of the backlog and trying to implement something in the database or in the API, which is currently not really needed for the current release, but most likely will be needed for the next release. So they're trying not to be idle and to save time. So where do they keep those changes? Do you guys use Git, GitHub? Where would you keep that? Branches. Branches, yeah. You know this one? I cannot stop watching it. I can watch it forever, I think. Yeah, at some point you'll need to merge, and the longer you not merge, the bigger will be the battle, right? Whose code is the right one, okay? So feature branches are kind of spooky thing, okay? So what actually happening here? Lots of complexity added, yeah? We focus on workers, not on work. We're trying to keep people busy. We are building more codes, so meaning more complex solutions. We also need to build more engineering tools to be able to help us know if our branches are out of order and how to manage that. Okay, so complexity is growing, like an avalanche. So if we count all these levels we added, it might be that the product owner is now 3 or 4 levels away from the developers. And he's not probably the one who's talking to the users. So from the users, that room, right, to the developers, it's many, many lines of indirections and broken telephones and specifications and all that mistake. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Nobody actually wanted to screw up things, right? Everybody actually had best intentions they could have had. Everybody was trying to do his best, having the situation he had to optimize the system, right? This is called a local optimization trap. You know what's local optimization? Local optimization is when you are trying to improve something, and you think your improvement will benefit everybody. But actually, it benefits only you, and you don't know what kind of effects it has on other people. An example would be, again, spaghetti example. It's a spaghetti day. You're a chief, you're a spaghetti cook, you're a spaghetti chief at a spaghetti restaurant, okay? And from time to time, people come and order the same kind of spaghetti, and then basically you boil it, little portions, and it takes a while, you know, to create all these portions and carry them, stuff like that. So how can you optimize your process? Well, one way to optimize it would be, of course, to come in the morning, and you know, yesterday you cooked 50 portions of spaghetti, so you boil a lot of spaghetti in the morning, like 5 kilos of spaghetti, right? It will take you an hour, but then it's done in one batch. And then when a customer comes and orders spaghetti, you take spaghetti, put it in a microwave, 2 minutes, it's done. It's a very efficient process from the point of view of a chief, right? It is optimized for fast delivery of spaghetti. It's not optimized for customer satisfaction. So depending what you're trying to optimize, you will end up having different processes and different structures and different thoughts around that. Yeah, so optimization goals are important. So we talk about spaghetti code a lot today, but we also need to know there are spaghetti organizations, right? It's a new term, and spaghetti organizations have organizational debt, which is to be paid off. So basically, it's an organization where nobody understands anymore how it works, and the company works not because of the structure, but despite of a structure. It somehow works because maybe this guy actually is a friend of this guy, and this guy, and this guy, they walk dogs together in the evening, right? And these guys watch football together, so somehow lots of informal communication channels are built, and that's how work is being done, actually around the formal structure of the organization. Okay, so what have we built so far? From the point of view of a product owner, we built a very technical organization, which is really hard to understand how to get things done. Yeah, make sense? And actually, the more things, the more lines, the more roles we add to this picture, the harder it will be to understand how this company works. So when we need more managers, we will likely hire managers who have IT background or engineering background or development background, because those guys can really understand this complexity and can help to manage that complexity, right? So we hire more technically skilled managers who are creating a technical organization. It is optimized to make sure code in each level is consistent, right? It's optimized to make sure people don't waste time talking to other functions of the organizations because it's wasteful. It's not very well optimized for delivering value to the customers or to make customers happy. Now, I've been talking for 22 minutes now, and I think people cannot really listen carefully for more than 20 minutes. They need to have a change, okay? So I cannot change my clothes right here because I'm being filmed and all that, but we need to do something else. So I'd like to do a little bit of interactivity, and would like to ask for your help to help me do this experiment with you. It will be completely not embarrassing. I promise not to make jokes about managers anymore. Just really simple stuff which all of you can do. So you have these cards, right, which you have received earlier. Anybody didn't have a card? You should have it from the first row, okay? So you need to form groups, guys, by the color of the cards. Yeah? So if anybody doesn't have a card, please have a card. You just need one card of any color, okay? Yeah, thanks. Cool. So you have your cards. Well, this is the hardest part of the exercise, okay? You will need to stand up and raise your cards, okay? And you're forming groups with people. So it's part number 1. You're forming groups of people who have the same color of the cards as yours, okay? Groups, 4 to 6 people in each group. You also will need to write something on the card, so make sure you have a pen or a pencil or something. Go! Raise your cards until you find a group, and then you can put your cards down. Raise your cards so that people know you're still looking for a group. And if you have a group, wait for more instructions. You guys are good, right? Yellow group. Perfetto. Parmigiano Reggiano. Allora mangiare. Very good, very good. Yeah, if you guys have a group of 4 to 6 people, you can put your cards down, you're good, wait for more instructions. You guys need to stand up, or your group already sitting. All right, sorry, you can keep sitting. I don't want to micromanage you anymore. So you can keep sitting or standing, it's up to you. So I see everybody put the cards down, which means everybody has a group, right? Everybody has a group? You guys, you two guys out there? Yeah, I really believe in self-organization, so I'm sure this can work. You guys good? Okay. So what you need to do now, attention, more instructions as promised. You need to write something on those cards, okay? So make sure you have at least several pens or pencils for group. You can share them, at least one, right? So based on the color of the cards, you will write different things. If you have a yellow card, you will write an adjective. If you have a green card, you write a verb. If you have a blue card, you write nouns, okay? So don't start writing yet. Don't start writing yet. So in every group, you have the groups, right? And these groups are responsible for consistency, okay? Make sure all the words you're writing in every group are unique. So every word should be unique. Every word should be in English. Shalti barshai is a bad example. It's not an English word. Okay? Make sure your words are long enough. Good and bad Scrum are very short, boring words. Go for bigger words. Okay? So you have like a minute or a minute and a half to have a discussion, and everybody writes one word on the cards. Any more questions? Go. So example, if you are a group having blue cards, everybody will need to have a noun on all the blue cards, but all the nouns have to be different nouns, okay? But you need to agree which one do you write. You guys have 20 seconds to finish that one. One word per person, different words. Based on the color, you know which words to write. Yellow cards have to be about nature, okay? Green cards about sport, dancing. Blue cards about Agile and Scrum and all that. Don't overcomplicate that exercise. Basically, any words are good words, okay? Don't overcomplicate. You guys good there? You guys good there? You guys good? Yeah? Let's have a quick check. Could you raise your cards if you have a word on your cards? Okay, it's like majority. Pull down, pull them down. Could you put a card if you don't have anything on your card yet? Okay, you guys have 20 seconds to figure it out. Okay. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, thank you very much. You are doing really good. I'm impressed. So we're ready to go to the next part of this exercise. In this part of the exercise, you need to form groups of mixed colors. So say goodbye to your team members. Okay. And you are forming groups so that there are all 3 colors in every group. 4 to 6 people. Duplicate colors are okay. Put your cards up, find people, put your cards down. Yes, you can shoot, you can hire people. It's a hiring, dating activity. So you guys have groups, 4 to 6, 7 is also okay. Yeah, team forming activity, Vaidas, Vaidas. You guys good? Perfetto, Rio Major. You guys good, right? Yeah. Actually, the same way as you are forming teams now, you can form real teams in your companies. Okay, but that's another story. I believe you guys have groups. There are all colors in each group. Colors are duplicated. Now, more instructions to follow. And now you need to compose a haiku. And I know what you're trying to ask. Okay, what the fuck is haiku? Okay, I will give you a very quick guide to haiku. Okay, it's very important to know. So haiku. It's from Japanese, right? It's a short poem that uses sensory language to capture a feeling or an image. It's a very beautiful, short poem, okay? They are inspired by the elements of nature, beauty, and your experience. So there are these beautiful little poems. They are not just any poem, okay? Not any poem about nature is a haiku. Could you guys just for a minute? Okay, so this is a haiku, okay? Structure-wise, it's a haiku. It needs to have 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, and 5 syllables again in the third line. Although it's not about nature or love or Japan, it's a haiku by its structure, okay? So you'll be writing poems with 5 syllables, not words, but syllables. So I will give you examples. You know, it's much better to explain requirements with examples than with just abstract things. So this is a haiku. Shoelaces untied, become a tripping hazard. Hope she falls for me. Okay, it's about love. It's not about shoelaces, right? Although there's no love there, it's kind of there. So this is a haiku, right? Shoelaces untied, so 5, 7, 5. It's a haiku, okay? More examples. This is a Monday morning haiku, okay? For those who work, for those who are employed, okay? Sometimes, okay? It's a haiku, right? And it's about work, and it's about your experience about work. This is about haiku, okay? This is a very automated way to do haikus. It's a haiku. It's about loneliness of a robot. You can feel that. And that's a haiku as well, okay? It's about looking for something which you can never find. It's about sadness of being and alive. You got the idea of haiku, right? 575 and about something deep inside yourselves. Another haiku, last one. Yeah, it's a 500 haiku. Okay, this was a very quick guide to haikus. Now guess what you're going to do. You will be composing haikus. So there will be some rules for you so to simplify your life, okay? Some guidelines. Use as many words from the cards as you can, okay? If you can use all of them, cool. If you can use just some of them, great. The topic for a haiku is something which is from this conference, okay? Complexity, organization, management, TDD, scaling, agility, whatever is here in the air. Spaghetti maybe as well. And don't forget to add emotional feeling to that. Maybe something about love, right? You guys have about 4 minutes for that. You can write many haikus. Are you guys confused enough to give it a try? Go! 4 minutes. You can write several and then pick which one is the best, okay? You don't have to argue a lot. Write several haikus. So one way to write a haiku is actually start writing a haiku, okay? Just start writing. And you can add more words. You can add more words to that. You can add words to that. So just a quick check. Who has at least one haiku? You guys? Oh, good, yeah. So write a few more, just for fun. It's actually quite a fun activity. Yeah? And you guys have 2 more minutes, okay? So try to make something up. Make something up. And last 30 seconds. Write it before you forget it. Just write it on one card, if you like. Look at the picture. Ah, good. Digital generation. Okay. Did you guys have some fun? I would like to hear some haikus. So I've never done this exercise before at this scale, okay? First time. Was the biggest haiku festival I've ever attended in my life, okay? So who would like to read haiku? You guys? Yeah, please do so. Hey, everybody, listen up, listen up, listen up.
Beautiful running, backtracking product owners, programming untouched.
Beautiful, Romy. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Other haikus? You guys want to share? I'll just come to you. You'd have to jump on the stage. Otherwise, you don't want to.
Time is beautiful during the retrospective. Invigorating.
What's invigorating? Giving energy. Like, pff. All right, okay. Next one.
Wonderful grooming, like fascinating fishing, cherish releases.
Grooming like fishing, cherishing releases. I can see that. And more.
Are you ready? An iteration is the fashionable cycling. It shakes backlogs hard.
Okay, okay. More.
We have managed to write 2 haikus using all the words what we had. So, beautiful agile always leads to hugging and outstanding driving. Backlog refinement always leads to successful, perfect end of sprint.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. No, they're yours. They're yours. More, we have more. I'm looking for this nature, love, something unsaid. There have to be something missing which is guessable. But go ahead anyway.
No nature here. The sprinting is over, the retrospective close, a wonderful tool.
Wow. Yeah.
We are in a closing keynote, so here the haiku. Big complexity, explored conference, beautiful people.
Very good. Anybody wants to share? Maybe 2 more, and then I have actually more slides to show. 2 more, maybe? You guys want to? She says about love. Okay.
Moonwalk into dangerous prioritization of colorful love just to run into greening complexity.
Okay, and more? Or?
No.
Okay, that's your telephone number, right? Okay, +37. Okay, good.
Swimming management, kicking dangerous backlog, dangerous agile.
Dangerous backlog and dangerous agile. Okay. You got the idea, right? You guys can keep your haikus in your pockets. Say bye to your teams. Okay. I have some more things to tell you, guys. few more things. Well, did you enjoy it? I think it was fun, huh? It was fun. So there was a haiku writing at scale, right? This was the biggest haiku writing event most of you have ever attended, and maybe in your life, right? So what actually managers should be doing? Instead of managing complexity or for complexity, they need to create an environment where this complexity will be managed by others. I think that's actually the role of a manager. So how many managers did we had when you guys were writing haikus? You guys one? Me. Yeah, maybe. Well, 1 to 300 people. I think it's a good ratio. The industry-wide ratio is 1 manager for about 3 to 4 engineers. A lot, okay? A lot. So 1 to 200, maybe 250. That's quite good, right? And you can also question whether actually I was managing or not. I was creating some environment. Well, I definitely tried to manage those guys to stand up. They refused. I gave up. It was the choice, but what I did, I created an environment where you guys manage that complexity, okay, right? Writing 30 haikus at the same time with 250 people, that's hella complexity, okay? So high alignment, we're doing haikus, clear constraints, how we do it, why we do it, and then giving the freedom to people who actually can do the work. That's what actually management is about, okay? So how to get agile when you are in a situation like that? Well, of course, you go and you download the latest. No, you don't, okay? I think this framework is a little bit overcomplicated to be able to help you minimize your complexity, okay? Well, if your process is much more complex than that, then of course doing safe will simplify that. But I can never comprehend, I can never fit this picture in my head. It's way too complex for me, so I'm not going to use it with my clients. But, I mean, you need to choose some approaches, right? There are different scaling approaches. There are more natural, organic approaches like Spotify. Now everybody is trying to call the teams squads. That's not Spotify model, okay? They're just renaming stuff. But there are natural models and there are more organized models of scaling. But whichever framework, whichever approach you're using, you need to check what is it offering to you. Is this approach reducing complexity, or is it just covering complexity in a nice box, like safe, for example? Okay? Is it adding new system elements, new roles, new functions, new departments, new silos, or is it removing them? The less, the better. We're trying to do more with less. That's how we manage complexity. Are we centralizing decision making, or we're trying to give it away to people like we did in the haiku writing competition? Are we just redefining the elements and the roles, or are we just renaming them? If you rename teams to squads, nothing will actually change much, right? And stuff like that, So you need to think of that. I told you there we have in a ratio of industry 1 to 3, 1 to 4 managers per developer. This article is quite popular these days. It's everywhere on my social networks for some reason. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. It's a brand fresh article, I guess, by some Harvard professor, I suppose. And basically he is saying that America is wasting this much money on the salary for managers. Okay, so if we can remove, if we can convert managers who just trying to manage complexity to people who will add value to the work, then we can increase the productivity and we can increase the richness of our world. Okay, well, it's quite a philosophical statement, but we have way too many people who are trying to manage complexity and trying to connect people instead of giving more power to the people. Well, we looked into the example before, right, where there was these component teams and they create all that weird dynamics, right? In this haiku example, you had 2 kinds of teams, right? when you get it together with the colors, with the cards of the same color, you were more like component teams, right? Like all of you had one task, one function, and these horizontal connections in the company are important. They help to make sure what we do is consistent, right? Then I help you to break into what we call feature teams, right? Or cross-functional teams. And these teams are good at actually doing creative work. So haiku writing is a creative exercise. Yeah? But there are more examples which you might see familiar. Even if you have feature teams, or if you have some other team setup, there are other structural limitations which can create some weird dynamics or interesting dynamics, so to say, in your company. Few examples. This is a very typical for game development. From my observation, you have an engine or a platform, lots of teams are sharing and using, and you have multiple products, like multiple games, and all the games are built on top of that platform. Anybody's from game development? Yeah, so if you form teams like that, some teams are just doing engine or platform work, and some teams are building games on top of that. You will have some interesting dynamic going on. It's actually pretty much close to what we discussed before, the component teams, right? There'll be lots of misunderstanding between these teams, and these agent guys most likely will build much more than those guys need, and they'll be out of sync, stuff like that. One way to break these dynamics is to kind of make sure these consumer-facing teams also doing some work in the platform. Yeah, you don't need to get rid of your platform team or your engine team completely. These people are still very important, and they have very important skills. They can still make sure that when these guys contribute the code to the platform, that code is actually consistent, right? In the worst case, they can review pull requests and merge them, which of course will delay feedback and will delay your deployment. And will make your release cycles longer, but that's the worst case. And maybe these two guys have already shown that whichever code they produce in the platform is quite okay. So maybe these guys are now allowed to do optimistic commit, right? And these guys are still being watched, and they're doing optimistic, they're doing pessimistic commits, for example, with pull requests. But the more the consumer-facing teams can do work throughout the platform, the less weird dynamics you will have, and the less management overhead you will have. It will take you years to get there, but it's a journey worth taking in most cases. Another example. And this is an example from a company I worked for. Basically, you have a web system, right? It's a website, it's a web shop, or in my case, I worked for a German social network, Xing, and basically it's a web company which was built long before a mobile era, right? So it was a web site, xing.com, and it's basically a German social network like LinkedIn. And then at some point, they realized, oh, actually, people are using mobile these days, okay? We need to build the mobile apps. Bam. And they built few small teams with iOS and Android developers, and those teams are start building their mobile apps. Well, this also creates interesting dynamics. If your mobile guys don't have access or skills or resources or whatever to actually contribute to the APIs they need to consume, you will have lots of interesting dynamics happening. Yeah, there'll be lots of waiting, and these guys will have a backlog full of requests from different teams, and those guys will be watching those tickets in Jira and waiting and waiting. So it might take you a while before you actually build anything for a mobile, if the mobile developers don't have access, or the mobile teams, so to say, don't have access to that code. It doesn't mean mobile developers have to learn to write like Ruby or something, although it's actually quite cool to be able to know many languages, because, well, all the breakthroughs I've seen in this company came from the mobile developers who actually also know how to do web. Yeah. So these days, going to mobile development is a really popular, well-paid job. So for most of mobile developers, this is the first job ever, and like Objective-C or Swift is the first programming language ever. And of course, they know only the mobile world, and they don't know actually that we've solved all these problems they currently have long before actually mobile was invented. So actually helping or motivating your mobile developers learn some back-end languages is a good idea. Otherwise, you can just create teams where the back-end developers join the mobile developers. In this case, you'll have much less dependencies, and when mobile guys need to release a very quick feature or feature update or patch, they will do it because they don't have to wait for anybody else to change their API. So when I worked for Xing, it took us at least 2 years to move from this to that, and it's still a very long, ongoing, interesting project. We written an article about that on infoq.com. There's an article, if you Google InfoQ mobile Xing, there's a story how we try to convert this world into that world. It's a like 2-year story, and it's still ongoing. Another example, and it's my last example for today, is that even if you have feature teams, and these teams contain all the specialists you need, yeah, if you split your product into very small sub-products, like different areas of your product. Like if this would be an example of a social network, the whole social network is your product from the viewpoint of a user. But from a viewpoint of a company, this might be just many different small products packed together, like profile, messaging, contacts, etc., etc. So if you are breaking your product in very small products, because it's actually quite, it might feel that it is minimizing complexity, right? It's, again, local optimization trap. Then every part of the product will have a small team, will have a small product owner with a small backlog, very easy to run those meetings, no much dependencies between the teams, stuff like that. Looks like good Agile. In my experience, this might work, might actually backfire. So what happens if this guy has a lot of work to do, for example, in the messaging part of the social network. You know, messaging these days is a big topic. Everybody is trying to develop a new messenger, like, you know, Viber, WhatsApp, Facebook, instant messenger, stuff like that. So maybe the company is now deciding we go to develop a new messaging platform. So of course, this backlog will become very big and full of messaging features. And some other backlogs will dry out, right? Because maybe this part of the product is already ready. So do you think this guy will give his developers to that guy? No. Very rarely happens like this. What will he be doing? He'll be keeping his guys, and he'll be keeping his guys busy by inventing new features. Unwanted features, actually, right? So what this guy needs to do to survive, he needs to hire more developers, or he needs to cut scope, but actually it's not good for the users anyhow, because the users actually want more features here, and they don't need anything there. So this company is not optimized, again, for the delivering value. So one way to solve this problem is actually to combine your small products into, again, one big monolithic product from the point of view of the user. On the technological side, it still can be microservices and all that, but from the point of view of the user, it's still one product, so you might actually need to have one backlog for the overall product, and one, you can call him chief product owner, or whoever product owner, or God product owner, right, to manage the priorities. And then when messaging become the top one priority for the whole company, everybody needs to start writing features for the messages, because that's the most important from the business point of view. So that's about business agility. So we talk a lot about the classical answer. So what's the modern answer, right? So I don't have any more slides, actually, right? So I'll let you figure it out for yourself. We're going to meet in 1 year at Agile Tour 2017. I'm going to check your HAIKU writing skills, your spaghetti cooking skills, and whether you were able to simplify a little bit of dynamics of your company by changing some structures. But the most important role of a manager, and everybody here is a manager, we're all managing ourselves and our work, is to understand the dynamics of the company. When we understand what happens, then we can change it. Okay? So some great books which can help you to start thinking about dynamics of the company and can give you some ideas where to look and how to connect the errors, and then how to simplify your reality. I think I'm done. Thank you very, very much. Enjoy the evening. Ačiū.